Here I am, ready to talk to you about how I try, at least, to put my heart and soul back into my business, and why for me it's so important. So just to give you a little bit of background information, last year I totally fell out of love with my business and realized that it was because I hadn't been listening to my heart and I hadn't been listening to my soul. And what I'd actually been doing was trying to follow various people, trying to follow the advice they were giving me, which was great advice, but it just wasn't working for me. And so little by little, I sort of came out of alignment with my business and obviously with myself, because when we are our business, it's so important to be aligned with what our heart and soul are telling us and wanting us to do. So this is why I've decided to come here and share some of my tips, techniques, tools, if you like, about how I actually do that. So the first thing that we need to do is to really reconnect to our heart and soul before we're then able to bring them back into our business. So one of the things that I want to tell you about is when we need to make decisions for our business. If you have a decision to make, whether it's big or small, if you start to feel fear or if you feel confused about that decision, that's already an indication that you are not listening to your heart and soul. Because when we have fear, it's because there's something else that's coming up that needs processing, that needs looking at, and it's really important for us to be able to do that. So my recommendation is, when you have fear that's coming up for you in your business, is to just stop, write everything down, write down what is happening, not necessarily why the fear is coming up, because you may not know, but at least identify all of the fear, and don't hold yourself back, because it's so important to be honest with ourselves as well when we are trying to work through everything like this. So the first thing to do is to list all of your fears. And then the second thing to do is to ask yourself, whose voice are you hearing when you read back through those fears? Is it your own voice? Or is it, for example, a fear from somebody else? Because what can often happen is that when we're a one-person business, we take on board lots of other people's advice, tips and techniques. And so we could actually be taking on their fears as well. So it's so important to connect to that and to say, is this fear mine, or is this fear somebody else's? If it's somebody else's, we just leave it to one side, because it's nothing to do with us and it's nothing to do with our business. And I don't know if you know the book, The 4 Agreements. It's a beautiful book talking about different ways of showing up and being in relationships. And one thing that I work on, and I've been working on for a very long time, is to take nothing and no one personally. And that includes everybody else's fears. So I really try and protect myself against that. So basically, if it's somebody else's fear, if it's somebody else's voice I can hear in relation to that, I just put it to one side and concentrate on my own fears. So then fears can have one of two different things. Fears can actually be directly related to something that has happened to us already in the past. That is showing up again, and it's either something that we weren't able to actually process and heal during the time, or it's something that is coming up again for even more healing. So if it's related to something that's already happened in the past, it's a natural reaction. It's a natural bodily reaction, because our body has stored that inside. And so when we have that fear coming up again, it's immediately going to react in relation to what's already happened. So when we have that knowledge, there are various ways of working through that fear. And one of the ways is emotional freedom technique. And so that's something I'm also qualified in. And EFT is a brilliant technique to enable us to actually move past that fear that's coming up again. So that's if it's directly related to something in the past. Fears can also be imaginary. So it's actually us just imagining what could happen in the future if we make the decision today. And that's where it can get interesting as well, because if we don't look at what we're imagining, what we're supposing, then we get carried away with it. And then we can often get overwhelmed and think that what we need to do, the decision that we need to make for our business, is just too much for us, and that will stop us in our tracks. So look at your fears if fears are coming up, and ask yourself, is it directly related to the past, in which case I can do something about it, I can work on it, I can change it? Or is it something that I'm just purely imagining, something that may happen in the future, and that my brain is taking over and it's really over-exaggerating the possible consequences of the decision I need to take or I want to take for my business? So that's the first thing I do every single time before I even go back to connecting to my heart and soul. It's really sort of taking a step back as well, trying to be as analytical as possible and trying not to let the emotions carry us forward in a way that's maybe not the best way for us. So that's the first thing. Look at your fears, what's going on. Often when we feel fear, we can feel very stressed and very anxious. And this is an indication again of our body just trying to keep us safe. So what we need to do is to go back to our breathing. And one of the things that I love to do is what the Heart Math Institute has given us, and it's called cardiac coherence. And basically you spend about 5 minutes just regulating your breath by following a curve. So basically the curve will come up like that and go down and come up and go down. And you just follow the curve for 5 minutes. So you breathe when it goes up, you breathe out when it goes down, breathe in when it goes up, breathe out when it goes down, etc. And that really helps us to regulate our breathing. And once we've done that, once we've looked at our fears, once we've calmed our breathing down, once we've released as much anxiety as possible, that's when we can start to come back to our heart and then to our soul. So how do we do this? The first thing I always do is, once I've done the first two things, is to get grounded. So I'm going to share with you a technique that I learned a couple of years ago about how to really ground ourselves in the earth. And for me, it's very, very powerful. So you can either do this sitting down, feet on the ground, feet on the floor. Go outside if possible, bare feet. That's really brilliant because your bare feet are in direct contact either with the grass or with the soil, with the earth. If you can get to a beach and do it on the sand, you know, anywhere where your feet can actually be in direct contact with nature. Otherwise, you can do it standing up, however you want to do it. But the idea is that we have feet on the ground, feet on the floor. So do that, close your eyes, and I invite you just to take a few breaths in and out. They don't have to be deep, but just a few breaths right now. And still with your eyes closed, you're going to repeat the following after me. So I ground my feet in the earth, in Mother Earth, in Gaia. Grounding, grounding, grounding. I feel roots growing beneath my feet. Roots that go down, that go down, that go down to the center of the earth. I ask for permission to connect myself to Source. Balance, balance, balance. Harmonize, harmonize, harmonize. Activate, activate, activate. Okay, and you can slowly open your eyes. So hopefully you've already felt a difference in your physical body, that you feel much more anchored, much more grounded, because this is so important now to be able to connect to our heart and to our soul. So what I recommend you do is you put your hands on your heart space, on your heart chakra, And you just feel your pulsations right now. You just feel the connection there between your hands and your heart space. And then when you're ready, what we're going to do is we're going to chant a little bit so that we can connect to our heart even more. So we have the index and thumb of our right hand. So we put those together and we put them onto our heart center, onto our heart chakra. And we put our left hand on our knee. And we take a deep breath in. And on the out breath, we are going to chant the sound yam. So let's go. Do it again a couple more times. One more time. I recommend doing this at least 3 times. We can do it a lot more. It depends on how connected you feel to your heart space. But that is activating our heart chakra by doing that. So now we've done that, what we're going to do is to close our eyes again, and we're going to call on our presence, I am. So close our eyes, hands on heart if you prefer to make that connection. And then you just simply ask your presence, I am, to manifest itself. Now, depending on how you react to techniques and methods like this, you may feel something, you may see something, you may hear something. So just notice what happens when you ask to connect to your presence, I am. If you're not sure what to say, simply say out loud, I ask to connect to my presence, I am. And once you feel that connection, still with your eyes closed, now what you're going to do is ask your soul, your presence, I am, what it wants for your future in business. Now the answer you may get, again, could be a feeling, it could be an image, it could be a message, you could hear something. The idea now is to note down all of the information that you have received, because that is your soul speaking to you. So even if it doesn't make sense, and often it doesn't make sense to our logical brain. So note down what your soul is asking you to bring forward for the future of your business. Then what we're going to do with that, so you can either do it now directly if you have pen and paper to hand. If not, you can do this after watching the video. And if you're watching on replay, please put #replay. I'd love to know who's watching it and if you have any questions. So the idea then is to take a piece of paper, to draw 2 circles on that piece of paper. The first circle you draw will represent your present in your business, and the second circle that you draw will represent the message that your soul has just given you for the future in your business. So when you do that, then you will see the gap, what's missing, what do you need to do or to bring forward to take you from your present business into your soul-aligned, heart-aligned future business. And then by identifying that gap, then you'll be able to start putting into place a plan of action, but a plan of action that is aligned with your heart, that is aligned with your soul, because you are moving in the direction of your heart and soul. You've gone through your fears, you've gone through your anxiety, your stress, what might be holding you back. You've reconnected to your heart and your soul. And so all of the messages that you've brought through are meant for you at this moment in your business. So that's how I work on this realignment with my heart and my soul in my business.